The stars looked different from the observation deck of the ESS Defiance. General Catherine Donovan stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the distant nebula shift colors as the ship moved through space. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, but they had already established 7 colony worlds. Progress had been swift, driven by the human desire to explore and expand. "General, we're receiving the transmission from Earth Command," said Commander Daniel Hayes as he approached. His uniform was crisp, his posture perfect. He had served under Donovan for 6 years and respected her more than any other officer. Donovan nodded without turning from the view. "Put it through to my private terminal. I'll review it immediately." The message wasn't unexpected, but the content still made her stomach tighten. The Zethral Empire, the dominant power in this sector of the galaxy, had discovered humanity's presence. First contact was imminent. 3 days later, Donovan stood in the diplomatic chamber of Outpost Horizon. Earth's government had chosen her to represent humanity's military interests during this historic meeting. President Laura Garcia led the diplomatic team, flanked by advisors and scientists eager to meet an advanced alien civilization. The Zethral delegation entered the room. They were massive beings, standing nearly 8 feet tall with iridescent scales covering their muscular bodies. Their ambassador, Lord Kazareth, looked down at the humans with 4 yellow eyes that blinked independently of each other. "We welcome you to this region of space," President Garcia began, her voice steady despite the intimidating presence before her. "Humanity hopes to establish peaceful relations with the Zethral Empire and all galactic civilizations." Lord Kazreth made a sound that the translation device interpreted as laughter. "Peace is simple. Submit to imperial rule and peace is yours. The Empire has stood for 12,000 years. Your species was wearing animal skins when our ancestors built cities in the stars." Donovan felt a chill run through her body. This wasn't going as hoped. President Garcia maintained her diplomatic tone. "With respect, Ambassador, humanity has its own sovereign worlds. We seek cooperation, not submission." The ambassador's upper eyes narrowed while the lower pair widened, an expression the humans couldn't interpret. "Sovereignty is earned through strength or age. You have neither. You will be categorized as a Class 3 species and assigned appropriate restrictions on expansion and technology development." "That's unacceptable," Donovan said, speaking for the first time. "Humanity will determine its own path." "Your opinion is noted but irrelevant," Lord Kazreth replied. "You will receive formal integration protocols within 1 standard cycle. Compliance is expected." The delegation departed without further discussion, leaving the humans in stunned silence. "They can't possibly expect us to simply surrender our independence," one of the advisors said. President Garcia looked to Donovan. "General, what are our options if diplomacy fails?" "Limited," Donovan admitted. "Our intelligence on their military capabilities is minimal, but what we know suggests they outmatch us significantly in both numbers and technology." "But not in determination," the president responded. "Prepare contingency plans. I'll continue diplomatic efforts." 2 weeks passed, with increasingly hostile communications from the Zethral. Then, without warning, they attacked the research outpost on Europa Prime. The small defense force was overwhelmed in minutes. 42 scientists and engineers were taken prisoner. Donovan received the news while overseeing combat drills on the Defiance. Commander Hayes delivered the report personally. "Europa Prime has fallen. Minimal casualties, but they've taken prisoners." The Zethral commander stated they were claiming the outpost as Imperial property. "And the people?" Donovan asked, her voice tight. Hayes hesitated. "They called them biological specimens and said they would be processed according to Imperial scientific protocols." Donovan's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "Recall all personnel from leave. I want the ship ready for departure in 6 hours." "May I ask where we're going, General?" "To the Galactic Council. If the Zethral are part of a larger community of species, we need to make our case before this escalates further." The Galactic Council convened in a massive space station at the junction of 3 major trade routes. Representatives from 26 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the central chamber. The humans were granted observer status, the lowest form of recognition. The council chamber fell silent when the news arrived. Communication Officer Jack Reeves intercepted and translated the Zethral transmission. The specimens taken from the human outpost have been terminated following completion of basic physiological studies. Results confirm preliminary classification as a Class 3 species with limited potential for useful integration. Donovan stepped forward to address the council. The Zethral have executed prisoners of war. Under any civilized code, this is a crime. The council chairperson, a being of pure energy contained in a translucent shell, responded with what seemed like indifference. The Zethral Empire has jurisdiction in that sector. Species classification and processing falls within their authority. They murdered unarmed prisoners, Donovan insisted. By your definition, perhaps, another counselor noted. The Zethral do not recognize Class 3 species as sovereign entities. Therefore, by their laws, no crime has been committed. Laughter echoed from the Zethral delegation. Their representative, a general even larger than the ambassador, addressed Donovan directly. Your emotional response is typical of primitive species. Those specimens served the Empire through their analysis. Be grateful your kind has been noticed at all. Donovan's face remained perfectly composed as she spoke. You killed human captives of war. This is not a matter of emotion but of principle. If the Council will not act, humanity will defend itself. More laughter filled the chamber. With what? The Zethral general asked. Your pitiful ships? Your crude weapons? The Empire has crushed rebellions from species far more advanced than yours. Donovan turned to leave but paused at the chamber entrance. Throughout our history, humans have been consistently underestimated. It rarely ends well for those who make that mistake. Back aboard the Defiance, Donovan called an emergency meeting with her command staff. Intelligence Officer Olivia Martinez had compiled all available data on the Zethral. Despite their technological advantage, they have weaknesses, Martinez explained. Their ships prioritize offensive power over defense. Their hierarchy is rigid, with little room for adaptive thinking. And most importantly, they truly believe we're no threat, which makes them predictable. Donovan nodded. We can't match them ship for ship, so we won't try. Commander Hayes, contact Earth Command. Request authorization for Operation Silent Knife. That strategy was theoretical, Hayes cautioned. It was designed as a last resort. We're already there, Donovan replied. The Zethral murdered our people and laughed about it. The Galactic Council won't help us. We either fight now, on our terms, or submit to an empire that sees us as specimens. Chief Engineer Samantha Miller spoke up. The adaptive shielding modifications you requested are ready for testing, General. If they work, we might stand a chance against their weapons. Good. Have your team work around the clock to install them on all ships. Donovan looked at each member of her staff. What happens next will determine humanity's place in the galaxy. We may be outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something the Zethral don't understand. The will to remain free no matter the cost. 3 days later, authorization came from Earth. Operation Silent Knife was approved. The ESS Defiance led a small fleet of Earth's most advanced ships toward Zethral territory. The Galactic Empire had laughed at humanity. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. The ESS Defiance moved silently through the darkness of space, its engines modified to reduce energy signatures. 4 smaller warships followed in tight formation. General Catherine Donovan studied the tactical display showing their position relative to the Zethral border outpost. Approaching target zone in 15 minutes, General, Commander Hayes reported. His normally calm voice carried an edge of tension. Donovan nodded. Status of the new shield modifications? Chief Engineer. Samantha Miller looked up from her console. Online and functioning, but untested in actual combat. The simulation suggests they'll hold against Zethral weapons for at least 3 direct hits. Let's hope we don't need to test that limit, Donovan replied. She addressed the bridge crew. This mission is about sending a message, not starting a war. We hit their communications array, disable their weapons, and leave. Clean and precise. Intelligence Officer Olivia Martinez approached with a data pad. General, I've completed the analysis of the Zeth-Ral biological data we gathered from public Galactic Council records. They have a significant weakness in their sensory system. Explain, Donovan said. Their eyes are highly sensitive to ultraviolet radiation. A concentrated UV pulse could temporarily blind them without causing permanent damage. I've already spoken with weapons control about modifying our tactical lights. Donovan smiled slightly. Excellent work, Martinez. Implement immediately. The border outpost grew larger on the view screen. It was an imposing structure. A massive curved station with dozens of weapon emplacements. The Zeth-Ral had built it to intimidate, not expecting anyone to challenge their authority. They've spotted us, Communications Specialist Jack Reeves announced. Incoming transmission. The face of a Zeth-Ral commander appeared on screen, his 4 yellow eyes blinking in what appeared to be confusion. Human vessels, you have entered Imperial space without authorization. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Donovan stepped forward. This is General Catherine Donovan of Earth's Defense Fleet. We are conducting a defensive operation in response to your unprovoked attack on Europa Prime and the execution of our people. The Zeth-Ral commander made the sound that translated as laughter. Your species continues to amuse. 1 defensive outpost and a handful of specimens hardly constitutes an act of war. Return to your territory immediately, or be destroyed. We will not comply. Donovan stated simply, then nodded to Reeves to cut the transmission. They're powering up weapons, the tactical officer warned. Evasive pattern Delta, Donovan ordered. All ships prepare to execute silent knife on my mark. The small fleet of human ships suddenly scattered in 5 different directions, moving with a speed and agility that seemed to surprise the Zeth-Ral gunners. Their first volley of energy weapons missed completely. UV countermeasures ready. Martinez reported. Deploy, Donovan commanded. From the human ships, brilliant pulses of ultraviolet light flooded the space around the outpost, penetrating the viewports and affecting the Zeth-Ral crew inside. Their targeting systems, designed to complement their natural vision, were temporarily compromised. Now, Donovan said calmly, execute silent knife. The 5 human ships converged on the station from different angles, each targeting specific systems identified by intelligence. The Defiance led the assault, its weapons precisely hitting the main communications array. Inside the outpost, chaos erupted as the Zeth-Ral soldiers struggled to coordinate their defense, their eyes painfully adjusting to the UV assault. Their rigid command structure, accustomed to overwhelming force rather than adaptive tactics, faltered against the unexpected human strategy. Their shields are fluctuating, Miller observed. The frequency modulation is working. Donovan had authorized a risky plan, using rapidly changing shield frequencies that momentarily aligned with the Zeth-Ral weapons, allowing them to pass through before shifting again. It meant perfect timing, but it also meant conserving power that would otherwise be drained by direct hits. Secondary targets acquired, Hayes announced. Firing solution ready. Fire, Donovan ordered. Precision strikes disabled the outpost's weapon systems without destroying the station itself. The human ships danced around the massive structure, avoiding return fire with practiced coordination. Message from Earth Command. Coming through encrypted channel, Reeves said. Donovan took the message at her private terminal. President Garcia's face appeared, her expression grave. General, our intelligence network reports that Emperor Vexathul has ordered the destruction of New Portland Colony. A Zeth-Ral battle group has already been dispatched. You must intercept them. Understanding, Madam President. We'll depart immediately. Donovan closed the channel and turned to Hayes. Change of plans. The Zeth-Ral are targeting civilians now. Set course for New Portland. Maximum speed. The ESS Defiance and its small fleet broke off their attack, leaving the border outpost damaged but intact. As they accelerated away, the Zeth-Ral commander managed to send one final message. Your primitive tactics change nothing, human. The full might of the Empire will crush your species for this insolence. Donovan didn't bother to respond. She was already planning their next move. During the journey to New Portland, Martinez and Miller worked together to analyze the data from their brief engagement. Their weapons are powerful but predictable, Miller explained, showing Donovan the energy signature patterns. They rely on brute force rather than efficiency. Martinez nodded in agreement. And their tactical responses follow strict protocols. They didn't adapt when we changed our attack pattern. Donovan considered this information. So they're creatures of habit, even in battle. That's something we can use. What about their ships heading to New Portland? 3 heavy cruisers and 6 support vessels, Hayes reported. They outnumber and outgun us significantly. Numbers aren't everything, Donovan replied. Prepare the crew for combat operations. I want everyone at their best when we reach New Portland. The colony came into view 16 hours later, a beautiful blue-green world with 2 small moons. Nearly 50,000 humans had made it their home. The Zethral fleet had just arrived, their massive ships moving into attack formation above the planet. They haven't spotted us yet, the tactical officer noted. Their sensors are focused on the planet. Donovan stood from her command chair. All ships initiate stealth approach. We'll use the larger moon for cover and strike from their blind spot. As the human fleet maneuvered into position, they intercepted communications between the Zethral vessels. Their commander is gloating about how easy this will be, Reeves translated. They're treating this as a simple extermination mission, not even a proper military operation. Donovan's expression hardened. They see us as pests to be eliminated, not opponents to be respected. That arrogance will be their downfall. She turned to her crew. Today we fight not just for those lost at Europa Prime, but for the future of our species. The Zethral need to learn that humans don't surrender, and we don't forget. The 5 human ships emerged from behind the moon, weapons hot and targeting systems locked on the Zethral vessels. The element of surprise gave them precious seconds to launch their first coordinated strike. For Earth, Donovan said quietly as the battle began. For humanity. The space above New Portland erupted in brilliant flashes of light as the vastly outnumbered human fleet engaged the mighty warships of the Galactic Empire. Against all odds, the battle for humanity's survival had begun. The battle above New Portland raged for 6 hours. General Donovan's small fleet moved with precision and coordination that baffled the Zethral commanders. The human ships darted between the massive enemy cruisers, striking critical systems, before moving to another target. They fought like wolves against bears, smaller but quicker, working together to bring down larger prey. Shields at 30%, Chief Engineer Miller reported, her voice steady despite the ship shuddering from a nearby explosion. We can't take much more of this. Donovan studied the tactical display. 2 Zethral support ships had been disabled, and 1 cruiser was heavily damaged. But the other enemy vessels continued their relentless assault. Lieutenant Reeves broadcast our recording of the Zethral communication channels, all frequencies, Donovan ordered. Reeves looked surprised but complied immediately. Across the battlefield, the confused and increasingly angry communications of the Zethral commanders became public. Their contemptuous references to humans as vermin and specimens filled the airwaves alongside their growing frustration at being unable to quickly defeat such primitive opponents. Commander Hayes, prepare all ships for jump maneuver Omega. On my mark, Donovan said. Hayes hesitated. General, that's an untested tactic. The calculations must be perfect or I trust our navigators, Donovan interrupted. The Zethral don't expect us to use FTL jumps in close-quarter combat. The element of surprise will give us the edge we need. As the human ships continued evasive maneuvers, their computers calculated incredibly precise, faster-than-light jumps. This tactic had been theorized but never attempted, using micro-jumps to instantly reposition during battle. All ships report ready, Hayes announced. Execute, Donovan commanded. In an instant, the 5 human vessels vanished from their positions and reappeared directly behind the Zethral cruisers in their blind spots. Before the enemy could react, the humans fired concentrated bursts at the engines and weapon controls of each ship. The Zethral fleet faltered, their rigid battle formation breaking as commanders tried to respond to attacks from unexpected directions. Their ships were designed for power, not agility. and they couldn't turn quickly enough to target the humans. "It's working," Martinez said with quiet amazement. "Their command structure is collapsing." The human ships continued the assault, coordinating their attacks with surgical precision. Finally, the lead Zethral cruiser sent out a broad transmission. "This is Commander Vroktar of the Imperial Fleet. We are withdrawing to regroup. This primitive deception will not save you next time." The Zethral ships began to retreat, their movements disorganized and hasty. Donovan did not celebrate. "Damage report?" "All ships reporting significant damage," Hayes replied. "The ESS Vigilance lost life support on 2 decks. Casualties across the fleet, 12 dead, 28 injured." "Could have been much worse," Donovan said quietly. "Begin rescue and repair operations. Martinez, analyze all data from the engagement. We need to be better prepared next time." 2 days later, as repairs continued, Donovan received an urgent message from Earth. The Zethral had attacked and captured the research station orbiting Neptune. The scientists there had been developing new propulsion technology. "They're not just targeting our colonies now," President Garcia said grimly. "They want our technology too. Or they want to ensure we don't develop technology that could threaten them," Donovan suggested. "Permission to take a small team and investigate." "Granted," the president replied. "But be careful, Catherine. Our intelligence suggests the station may still be intact, with prisoners held there." Donovan selected a small strike force led by Lieutenant Paul Williams, a former Special Operations soldier. Using a modified shuttle with enhanced stealth capabilities, they approached the Neptune station undetected. "Life signs confirmed," Williams reported as they neared the station. "Multiple human signatures on the research level." "And Zethral?" Donovan asked. "At least 20, concentrated in the command center and laboratory sections." Donovan's team docked at an emergency airlock and entered the station silently. The Zethral guards patrolled with confidence, clearly not expecting any resistance. This made them careless. Williams and his team moved through the station's maintenance passages, avoiding detection as they approached the laboratories where the human life signs were strongest. When they reached the observation window, what they saw made even the hardened soldiers pause in shock. The Zethral were conducting experiments on the captured scientists. 3 humans were connected to strange machines, their expressions frozen in pain. "We move now," Donovan whispered. "Stun weapons only. We need prisoners of our own to understand what they're doing." The rescue team burst into the laboratory, their modified weapons firing concentrated UV pulses that temporarily blinded the Zethral scientists. In the confusion, Williams and his soldiers quickly subdued the aliens while Donovan went to the captive humans. Dr. Alice Gordon, one of the scientists, said weakly, as Donovan freed her from the restraints. They're trying to understand how our brains work. They can't believe we developed FTL technology so quickly. They think we must have stolen it." "We're getting you out of here," Donovan assured her. "Can you walk?" Gordon nodded. "There are others. In the lower laboratory, at least 15 more scientists." Williams approached with a captured data tablet. "General, you need to see this." The tablet contained research notes from the Zethral scientists. They weren't just studying human physiology. They were documenting experiments on combining human neural tissue with their technology, trying to understand the cognitive differences that might explain humanity's rapid technological development. "This is worse than we thought," Donovan said grimly. "They don't just see us as pests. They see us as lab specimens they can dissect to steal our abilities." The team moved quickly through the station, freeing the remaining captives and gathering all the intelligence they could. As they prepared to leave, alarms finally sounded. The Zethral had discovered the intrusion. "We need to move fast," Williams urged. "Wait," said Dr. Gordon, pointing to a secured door. "There's one more room. They have something important in there. I heard them talking about a special subject." Donovan made a quick decision. "Williams, get everyone to the shuttle, prepare for emergency departure. I'll check this room with Martinez." Using captured access codes, they opened the secured door. Inside was a single human man, connected to even more elaborate machinery than the others. Despite his weakened state, his eyes were alert and defiant. Dr. Steve Bennett, he whispered, when they approached. Chief researcher on the Neptune project. We're getting you out, Martinez said as she began disconnecting the equipment. No time for gentle disconnection, Bennett said urgently. Just pull the primary feeds and take that data core. He nodded toward a glowing cylinder in the corner. It contains everything they've learned about us, and everything I've learned about them while they thought I was unconscious. As they escaped with Bennett and the data core, pursued by Zethral, security forces, Donovan realized this mission had changed everything. They no longer faced simple conquest. They faced an enemy that viewed humans as resources to be harvested for their cognitive abilities. The shuttle escaped the station just as Zethral reinforcements arrived. As they flew back toward the waiting, Defiance, Dr. Bennett spoke quietly. General, they're afraid of us. That's why they're studying our brains. In all their thousands of years of expansion, they've never encountered a species that developed technology as quickly as humans. They can't understand how we advance so fast without outside help. Donovan looked at the injured scientist. And what did you learn about them, Doctor? Bennett's tired face showed a hint of a smile. I learned that they have no concept of creativity. They can improve existing technology incrementally, but true innovation eludes them, and that terrifies them more than our weapons ever could. News of the Neptune station rescue spread quickly through Earth's colonies. The images of human scientists being used as test subjects shocked and angered people. Thousands of citizens volunteered for military service, and Earth's governments united as never before. President Garcia addressed the United Nations 2 days after the Neptune mission. We face an enemy that does not recognize our right to exist as equals. The Zethral Empire threatens not just our territory, but our very humanity. Today, I am announcing the formation of the United Human Defense Initiative. All Earth nations and colonies will combine their military forces under a single command structure. In the audience, General Donovan listened with mixed emotions. Unity was essential, but she knew what was coming next. To lead this combined force, I am promoting General Catherine Donovan to the rank of Admiral. Her tactical brilliance and unwavering courage make her the clear choice to guide humanity through this crisis. The data recovered from Neptune proved invaluable. Dr. Bennett worked with intelligence teams to analyze the Zethral research and technology. The captive Zethral scientists remained silent at first, but eventually one of them, a junior researcher named Mevtan, began to cooperate. My superiors believe humans are a genetic anomaly, Mevtan explained through a translator. Your brains should not be capable of the innovation you display. It defies the Empire's understanding of evolutionary development. Admiral Donovan leaned forward. Is that why you experimented on our people? To find out how we think? Mevtan's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture they had learned indicated discomfort. The Empire has encountered over 200 intelligent species in its history. None have gone from primitive flight to faster-than-light travel in less than 300 years. You did it in 60. Many in the Imperial High Command believe you must have stolen the technology or been given it by some unknown enemy of the Empire. This information confirmed what Dr. Bennett had suggested. The Zethral feared humanity's rate of progress. They couldn't understand how a lesser species could innovate so quickly. As Earth prepared for war, Donovan gathered her strategic team. Commander Hayes was now Captain Hayes, serving as her second-in-command for the combined fleet. Intelligence Officer Martinez had been promoted to lead a new division focused exclusively on understanding Zethral psychology and tactics. Chief. Engineer Miller headed the technology adaptation team, working to incorporate captured Zethral tech into human ships. Our new ships are nearly ready, Miller reported, showing holographic displays of the upgraded fleet. We've incorporated adaptive shielding based on Zethral designs but modified to be more energy efficient. Tactician Nicole Harrison, a brilliant strategist recruited from the European Space Agency, presented her analysis. The Zethral always fight in rigid formations with predictable attack patterns. They rely on overwhelming force rather than adaptability. I propose we develop what I call the scattered swarm strategy. Harrison displayed a simulation showing smaller, faster human ships moving in seemingly random patterns before suddenly converging on key targets. The Zethral ships in the simulation couldn't track or predict their movements effectively. They expect us to behave like them, to form battle lines and engage directly, Harrison explained. But humans have always excelled at asymmetric warfare when facing a superior enemy. Donovan approved the strategy. Begin training immediately. We need our pilots comfortable with these maneuvers before the Zethral launch their next major offensive. That offensive came sooner than expected. 3 weeks later, a massive Zethral fleet entered the Alpha Centauri system, home to humanity's oldest and largest colony. Over 2 million people lived on New Earth. The terraformed planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, B. Admiral Donovan led the human fleet to meet this threat. 64 ships, everything Earth and its colonies could muster, against over 200 Zethral vessels. They want to end this quickly, Captain Hayes observed as they studied the enemy formation. This isn't just an attack, it's an extermination force. Then we make them work for it, Donovan replied. All ships, implement scattered swarm protocol. Remember your training. Stay unpredictable, strike fast, and don't engage in prolonged exchanges. The human fleet dispersed into smaller groups, taking positions that seemed random to the Zethral commanders. When the Imperial ships advanced in their typical arrow formation, expecting to simply plow through the human defenders, they found only empty space where their targets had been moments before. The battle for Alpha Centauri became a lesson in human ingenuity versus Imperial power. The Zethral had bigger ships, stronger weapons, and vastly more experience in space warfare. But the humans had flexibility, creativity, and the ultimate motivation, fighting for their very survival as a species. Dr. Bennett had completed his work just in time for this battle. The Neptune research had yielded a critical discovery, a weakness in Zethral shield technology. Their shields operated on regular frequency patterns that could be predicted and exploited. Fire Sequence Alpha, Donovan ordered as her ships executed a perfectly timed attack run. Target their command ships. The human weapons, modified to match the precise frequencies of the Zethral shields at their weakest points, penetrated the enemy defenses. For the first time, the mighty Imperial warships found themselves vulnerable. The Zethral commander, Lord Drezcon, appeared on the communication screen. This trickery is beneath even your primitive species, Admiral. Face us. With honor in direct combat. Donovan's expression remained calm. We fight to win, not to satisfy your concept of honor. You've left us no choice. The Emperor himself has ordered your extinction, Drezcon snarled. Your colonies will burn. Your homeworld will become a research outpost. Your children will be specimens in Imperial laboratories. Thank you for the transmission, Lord Drezcon, Donovan replied. It has been very informative. She signaled to Communications Officer Reeves, who nodded in confirmation. The Zethral commander's threats had been broadcast to every human ship and colony. Any doubts about the Empire's intentions had been erased. This was not a war of conquest, but of survival. The battle continued for nearly 14 hours. Human ships darted between enemy formations, striking critical systems before jumping away. The Zethral, unable to adapt to these tactics, suffered mounting losses. Their rigid command structure became a weakness as field commanders waited for orders rather than responding to rapidly changing situations. On the bridge of the flagship ESS Defiance, Admiral Donovan received an urgent message from Captain Hayes. Admiral, long-range sensors detect a new Zethral fleet entering the system. At least another 100 ships. Donovan felt a chill but kept her voice steady. Our status? 47 ships still operational, 11 with major damage. We've destroyed or disabled 62 enemy vessels. It wasn't enough. Despite their tactical success, the humans couldn't overcome such overwhelming numbers indefinitely. Then Lieutenant Williams, now in charge of special operations, reported in from his mission. Admiral, Phase 2 complete. The devices are in place on all targeted ships. Donovan allowed herself a small smile. Activate. Throughout the Zethral fleet, Tiny devices that had been secretly attached to their hulls during the chaotic battle suddenly activated. These were not weapons but transmitters, broadcasting the exact shield frequencies of each ship to the entire human fleet. "All ships fire at will," Donovan ordered. "Target engines and weapons systems." The tide of battle shifted dramatically as human weapons found their marks with unerring accuracy. The mighty Imperial ships, once thought invincible, began falling, one after another. As the second Zethral fleet arrived, they witnessed something unprecedented, an Imperial armada in retreat. The human fleet, though battered and reduced in number, had achieved what the Galactic Council had thought impossible. The Battle of Alpha Centauri would be remembered as humanity's first major victory against the Empire. It would not be the last. News of the human victory at Alpha Centauri spread through the galaxy faster than the Zethral could contain it. Species that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries whispered about the small, young race that had defied the mighty Empire. Some began quiet acts of resistance. Others secretly reached out to human representatives. In the 6 months following the battle, Admiral Donovan implemented a bold strategy. Rather than defending human territory, she launched targeted strikes deep into Imperial space. Small, fast ships attacked communication relays, supply depots, and military outposts before disappearing. The Zethral, used to fighting large-scale battles against predictable enemies, struggled to respond to these guerrilla tactics. "The Emperor has scheduled an emergency session of the Imperial Council," Intelligence Officer Martinez reported during the daily briefing. "Our sources in the Galactic Council say he's furious about the growing resistance movements." Donovan nodded. "And the status of Operation Whisper?" "Proceeding as planned," Captain Hayes confirmed. "The network now extends to 17 systems. The suppressed species are eager to help once they realized we can actually hurt the Empire." Operation Whisper was perhaps Donovan's most daring plan. Human agents had established contact with other species living under Zethral rule, creating an intelligence network that spread through Imperial territory. These allies provided invaluable information about troop movements, security protocols, and vulnerable targets. The ESS Defiance, now upgraded with hybrid human Zethral technology, led a small stealth fleet toward the heart of the Empire. Their destination, Zeth Prima, the homeworld of the species that had dismissed humans as primitives not worthy of respect. "Are you sure about this, Admiral?" President Garcia had asked when Donovan proposed the mission. "If you're captured." "We won't be," Donovan had replied with quiet confidence. "The Empire has never been infiltrated because no one believed it possible. That assumption is their greatest weakness." Now, as the stealth fleet approached Zeth Prima, Donovan gathered her key officers. "This is not a military strike," she reminded them. "We're here to deliver a message that cannot be ignored." The planet's orbital defense network was formidable. Thousands of automated weapons platforms and patrol ships guarding the Imperial capital. But Dr. Bennett's team had developed a way to temporarily mimic Zethral energy signatures, allowing the human ships to approach unchallenged. "Entering standard orbit," the navigator reported. "Defense Grid identifies us as an Imperial scientific vessel returning from deep space mission." "Excellent," Donovan said. "Communications. Transmit the request for audience using the codes our allies provided." Lieutenant Reeves sent the carefully crafted message. Minutes later, he looked up in surprise. "They've granted permission for a small delegation to attend the Galactic Council emergency session. They think we're representatives from a subjugated world bringing tribute information." Donovan had anticipated this outcome. "Martinez, Hayes, Williams, you're with me. Miller, you have command of the fleet. If we're not back in 6 hours, implement contingency protocol and return to Earth." The Imperial Palace dominated the skyline of the Zethral capital, a massive structure of gleaming metal and crystal that towered over everything around it. The human delegation was escorted through vast hallways by guards who barely looked at them. The Empire's arrogance was evident in every detail of the security arrangements. They simply couldn't imagine anyone daring to infiltrate their most sacred space. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. At the center sat Emperor Vexathul himself, larger than any Zethral they had seen before, his scales a deep purple that signified royal blood. Beside him stood his military commander, General Zorgath, who had ordered the execution of the human prisoners from Europa Prime. The Emperor was addressing the assembly. These human disruptions are a minor inconvenience that will soon be resolved. General Zorgath has implemented new security protocols. Admiral Donovan stepped forward, removing the hooded cloak that had concealed her identity. Perhaps the general would like to explain how these minor inconveniences managed to reach your throne room, Emperor Vexathul. The chamber erupted in chaos. Guards rushed forward but stopped at a signal from the Emperor, who leaned forward with all four eyes focused intensely on the human woman who had dared to interrupt him. Admiral Catherine Donovan, he said, his translator rendering his voice in flat tones. Your reputation has grown tedious. Your presence here will make your execution more convenient. Donovan remained perfectly calm. I haven't come to fight. I've come to give you one opportunity to end this conflict before it destroys your empire. The Emperor made the now familiar sound of Zethral laughter. Your species continues to amuse. You think a few victories against our outposts changes the balance of power? The Empire has endured for 12,000 years. Your civilization barely understands space travel. Yet here I stand in your palace, Donovan replied, while your fleets chase shadows across the stars. General Zorgath stepped forward. Enough of this primitive's prattle. Guards, take them. Before you do, Donovan said loudly, you should know that human ships are currently positioned near every major Zethral world. Our allies control your communication network. One signal from me and your empire begins to fall. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Impossible. No force could penetrate our defenses so completely. Donovan nodded to Martinez, who activated a holographic display. It showed real-time footage from human ships and allied operatives throughout Zethral space. You killed human captives of war, Donovan said, her voice carrying throughout the silent chamber. You laughed at our protests. You called us primitives and specimens. But what you never understood is that humans don't fight like the other species you've conquered. We adapt. We create. We see possibilities where you see only the way things have always been. The Emperor rose to his full height, towering over the human delegation. Your audacity is remarkable, Admiral. But even if what you claim is true, you cannot hope to defeat the full might of the Imperial forces. I don't need to defeat your forces, Donovan replied. I just need to show the galaxy that you can be defied. The species you've subjugated for centuries are watching. Some are already helping us. How long will your empire last when everyone knows you're not invincible? For the first time, uncertainty flickered in the Emperor's eyes. He glanced at the other council members, many of whom represented worlds conquered long ago. Their attention was fixed on the small human woman who had brought evidence of Imperial vulnerability into the very heart of power. What do you want? The Emperor finally asked. Recognition of human sovereignty, return of all prisoners, reparations for the lives lost, and a fundamental restructuring of the Galactic Council to give equal voice to all spacefaring species. The demand was met with silence, then murmurs as council representatives began to whisper among themselves. General Zorgath snarled. This is preposterous. One primitive species does not dictate terms to the Empire. Donovan turned to face him directly. You executed scientists from Europa Prime. You performed experiments on humans at Neptune Station. You ordered the extermination of our colonies. The choice before you is simple, justice or consequence. The Emperor studied Donovan for a long moment before speaking. You would risk everything on this gamble, Admiral? Your ships against our empire? We already have, she answered simply. And we're still here. The Galactic Council erupted in debate. Many representatives who had long chafed under Imperial rule now saw an opportunity. The Emperor, sensing the shifting mood, raised his hand for silence. The Empire acknowledges the unique position humanity has created, he said carefully. We will consider these terms. 6 months later, Admiral Catherine Donovan returned to the Galactic Council chamber, this time as Earth's official representative to the Reformed Council. The Zethral Empire had not fallen, but it had been fundamentally changed. Species that had been subjugated for centuries now had voices in galactic governance. The Emperor remained powerful, but no longer absolute. As Donovan took her seat among the representatives of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, she reflected on how quickly things had changed. Humanity had gone from an unknown primitive species to a respected power in just over 3 years. The humans have achieved what many thought impossible, noted the representative from Keltorax, a world that had been under imperial rule for 2,000 years. You forced the Empire to change. We simply reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten, Donovan replied. Progress doesn't come from power alone. It comes from creativity, adaptability, and the courage to imagine. Things can be different than they've always been. The Zethral Emperor, now one voice among many in the council, watched the human admiral with all 4 eyes. He still didn't fully understand how his mighty empire had been outmaneuvered by such a young species. But he had learned a lesson that would echo through galactic history for millennia to come. Never underestimate humans,